All right. Good morning, everyone, and for those of you who are watching on demand, we have Mark Capus coming in today to us, and Mark is going to be talking about security awareness. All right, Mark, why don't you take it away?
Morning, Joe. Today I thought I'd spend some time talking about security awareness initiatives. It's for the more mature organizations out there, this is something you're probably already doing, and certainly if you're in an audit situation for 7799, 27 double aught, you know, that's one of the areas that they will ding you for if you don't have any kind of user awareness. So I'm going to break into two types of user awareness. One that focuses on the common end user awareness experience and some of the things you want to think about when you look at those programs. And the other part is leadership security awareness training. A lot of people don't spend enough time working with their leaders and make sure, you know, they're security aware, especially the non-IT related security personnel. So if you have a security awareness program, ask yourself a couple questions. When was the last time you reviewed it against your current set of policies and standards? You ought to be doing an annual review at minimum. And the second question you can ask yourself, and you probably have some tools to evaluate this, is how effective is your user awareness program? How many of your security incidents are caused by users, you know, trying to do, you know, they have benign intent, but either they unwittingly violate policy or they unwittingly do something that, you know, we in IT practice find to be irretrievably ignorant. So one of the ways you can do that is you can look at your incident reports and see what's going on out there. The other thing I would suggest doing is survey your user and stakeholder community. Find out, you know, you can do this a couple of ways. Question them about, you know, what their level of confidence is with their policy and standards and safe computing. And the other thing you want to query is, you know, what are the risks they perceive are important? Because the things that they're scared of may or may not be on your radar, and they may or may not be real, and you can address those. So the next question is you know, go revisit this path or head down this path for the first time. Do you need to go it alone? And the answer is absolutely not. You need to get your corporate leadership involved. You ought to be working with your human resources because they're responsible for training. They're responsible for, most likely they're responsible for policy compliance and code of conduct compliance, and that's where your security policies come in. And if you have a training department or a group that you use for training, leverage them. Talking about leadership awareness, what do I mean when I say leadership? Who qualifies for leadership? Anybody who's currently involved in your security governance board is a candidate for leadership security awareness. Which begs the question, if you don't have a security governance board, get one. Put one in. And if not, the types of people you want to look at, your CEO, your CFO, CIO, your big C-level people, your corporate risk manager, your legal counsel, your human resources director, and some of your senior critical business contacts and stakeholders. And why is, you know, all this security awareness important for your leaders? The more your leaders understand how information security affects their corporate risk is actually a critical corporate risk itself. If they're unaware of any of the measures that you put in place to protect your corporate data, they're flying blind, and by virtue of that, you're probably flying blind too. In some cases, like Sarbanes-Oxley, they're going to be personally liable for the validity of the data that you're supporting. They're going to want to know that they have that information assurance, so they can clearly sign on the dotted line and say, you know, this is the real deal, and I'm not going to go to jail based on this data. A better informed leadership will make better decisions, especially when it comes down to budgets. If they know what you're doing in the trenches, if they know some of the risk out there, when it comes time to signing off on that new IDS system or improving your proxy appliances, they're more likely to do that if they understand the risks. Leadership is also responsible for helping you in changing your corporate culture to be better security aware. Every good organization is led by example, so get them on board and get them to be champions of your information security. So the next question is, how do you get these guys who are insanely busy, probably even busier than you, how do you get a C-level to take on security awareness? Make yourself available. They probably already know you from that 3 o'clock call when the credit card numbers got stolen. Go back and introduce yourself and say, hey, I know that you wanted to look at an iPad for corporate use, and here's my risk analysis. You're going to have to do it anyway because they're going to demand it. So spend the extra time and do a risk analysis of the new hot corporate toy for executives and be proactive there. Leverage your corporate risk group and your human resources director where possible. What training, executives are required to do annual training like the rest of us. What's on their agenda to do? And are there other corporate culture initiatives you can piggyback on? As well as you're working with your security governance organization, you write the rules for that. Make it a requirement that anybody who's not in IT has to take a business leader security awareness course. So moving on off the leadership side of things and moving back into users. Why do you need to get involved in user awareness? Well, as we talk a lot on InfraGard, the user's the weakest link typically in a lot of our security. If you're responsible for data security, then you're kind of responsible for helping to shore up that weakest link. In terms of IT infrastructure spend, some of your pain points, if your pain points are being caused by users, you can fix that with training for a fraction of the cost that it'll take you to operate a new security infrastructure appliance. A couple of years ago, the Burton Group wrote a paper on awareness training, and they ran through some numbers, and they typically found that most organizations, end-user training comes in at $20 to $100 US per user per year. Even if you have 10,000 users, that's probably less than most IDS systems will cost you to implement and operate. What topics should you cover in end-user awareness? And most of this is going to be old hat, but it doesn't hurt to go through it again and think about really what you're trying to cover and where your weak points are. What are your user responsibilities for data protection? I can't tell you how many organizations I come in and you start meeting with business people and users aren't even aware that they are responsible for the ownership and care of their own data. They just assume that the system admins do it and system admins can read minds. They also typically do not have a really great understanding of what the information classification and handling policies are. And that's something that you can really sit down and get some better competency around. If they know how to classify data in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and if you can start evangelizing on that, that will really help them get a level of maturity and help you protect your data. Actually, protect their data. What are the company's security policies and what are the standards that apply to end users? Start talking about password length, complexity, change frequency. I'm a big advocate of using password phrases where you require length and complexity. That's a really easy mnemonic to help users, deal with what would normally be unwieldy passwords. What are their internet and email usage policies? What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? And make sure they understand that. Another big one, how to report security incidents. We covered this a little last week in incident response, but again, if the users can report security incidents or they need to escalate something, make sure they understand how to do that. And make sure it's not when it's happening, try to get that seed planted early on before the emergency. Make them aware of social engineering attacks and phishing. If you're in an organization that gets targeted for that sort of thing, you need to get them aware that from time to time they may get a phone call and you want to basically not let that be an avenue of attack. How to do safe computing and best practices. Talk about physical security a little bit. Shoulder surfing. If you have card access to the building, make sure that they understand that, letting people walk in behind them is a bad idea. And then, granted, physical security is not necessarily your order of the day, but you want to get people thinking in those terms. The more security aware you can make people about their physical surroundings, they'll start taking on some of the information security concepts as well. All right, talking a little bit about what tools are available to you, and some of these tools are at little or no cost because you've already got them and you're using for other things. If you've got a company intranet web server or you have a departmental web server, use that. Doesn't take you too much to put up a page on that. and make sure you link to your policies and standards. Make sure you link to your incident response process. If you have a hotline or mailboxes, you can publish that stuff up there. You've got email. That's a great way to do surveys and user notifications. Granted, nobody likes spam, even from the IT department, but it's useful. If you have external web servers, there are a bunch of external web sources. Even Microsoft has some user awareness materials. You can use external vendor training. SANS has CBTs. There are many other, if you use whatever you use for your corporate training projects, chances are they have a basic user awareness program or will write one with your input. Make sure you leverage your human resources policy compliance tools and processes. Typically, in most mature organizations, you have to sign off on your business ethics once a year. You can piggyback on that process and say, as part of your business ethics, you're agreeing to apply to our security policy. And by the way, here they are. Make sure you read them. Make sure you sign off on them. The other thing you do is you can make it fun. Run security awareness contests. We have, in regard, Iron Key raffles, in our initiatives. Turn that over to your user community. Buy something like an Iron Key and raffle it off to somebody who can answer the survey the quickest and with the most level of correctness. Make a secure employee of the month, etc. You also want to make the user experience full duplex. And what I mean by that is you're going to push some things out to the user, but use this as an opportunity to pull things back from your user. As I indicated before, survey your users for their policy and security competency. You can run quizzes, you can run, with the business ethics renewal, you can get a gauge for how people are doing with their awareness. And survey your business stakeholders and users for what they perceive their risks and concerns are. Again, if you don't know about what's worrying them, that could be nothing, or it could be something major. And you want to make yourself aware of that, and it's a proactive way to do that. As well, you can push stuff out to the users. As you see new vulnerabilities come in that may impact your user community, especially as it pertains to desktops and endnotes, you may want to make your users aware of those vulnerabilities. If there's a new vulnerability that gets people to go to a certain website, let them know that they shouldn't be clicking on any links going to strange places. I mean, it's all that for us. Also, report back to them on what their metrics are. If you're keeping track of how many virus outbreaks you get, how many bad websites you're seeing, you may want to report back to them and say, hey, we had a bad month last night. You guys need to pay attention to what you're doing. Or, hey, this time last year we had double the number of viruses. Good job. I've got more information on security awareness and training from a variety of sources. I'll be posting them in the chat very shortly, including some leadership podcasts from CERT, some SANS-ORG training for both individual creating a security awareness program and leaders, as well as NIST and Microsoft. And that's Practical InfoSec in a nutshell.
Hey, that is darn good.